So give that another shot, Jennifer.
I will try that again. Let's see. Share screen.
And don't worry about the classroom, Jennifer. I'm techie and I had junk all over my room. I was like a vintage store for technology sitting all over my classroom.
In the weird getting like knocked out, my video closed up too. So hang on just a second. Let's see. I swear I'm going to get it this third time as a charm. Okay.
I am a science teacher at Greencastle High School. I teach integrated chem physics, AP environmental science, physics, and also earth space science. And across the 4 different classes, I'm looking for ways to engage students with the content in a variety of different ways throughout the school year, as every other teacher is. And one thing that I found through my teammate, Doug Hudson, is that we can use these little bitty robots called Ozobots that just drive around on a course that a student has created. And just the addition of that little fun activity into a lesson, I have found engages students across the board, across all of my courses, no matter what their ability level or subject is, it engages them in the actual content that we're doing. And so using the Ozobots is something that I like to pull out a couple of times a year in the fall and in the spring for those 4 different classes, so that students have a reason to look into the material more, learn the material more, and actually engaged with it hands-on. They feel like they're just making a game up, but they're actually learning the content at the same time. So for this presentation, Doug and I are going to show you a couple of things that we've actually done together. And as a side note, Doug is the alternative school teacher and also the college and career readiness teacher in this building. So he is not in my classroom with me, except when we decide to collaborate on activities like this. Then he'll come down and he'll bring his Ozobots with me. So we really only have the one set at Greencastle High School that he has procured, but he lends it out if needed, and then he comes along so that he can help to do the lesson. So what you're gonna see is actually in my own classroom, but it'll start with Doug just introducing the Ozobots and then showing students how to use them, and then we'll get into a little bit more about what we've actually used them for.
Where'd I put the little letter? This is an Ozobot right here. This is it. Okay. Believe it or not, right here you're looking at probably about $200. Okay. So these things are not cheap, but they're fun. There's an Ozobit. There's an Ozo Evo. This is the Ozo Evo, which is the higher end Ozobot. It simply turns on. There's a button right here that will turn it on. So I simply. It lights up, and it should. Once it gets going, talk to me and will tell me, hello. I can make this thing from my phone snore. I can make it laugh. I can do all kinds of stuff with here. But on the bottom, you will see those yellow lights. And then right here, you can't see it, but right here there is a white light as well. That white light is what tracks the Ozobot. So again, I've got some stuff down here that I'm going to show you in a minute as to how this will track. But the biggest thing I want you to understand when you're doing your map, there has to be a pretty good contrast between your white paper and the lines you are going to make the Ozobot travel. Okay. Markers, I don't know how many sets of markers that Mrs. Finnerty has. You will use those markers. I will also show you some things as it's traveling your line. You can make this thing spin. You can make it moonwalk. You can make it do a tornado. You can make it jump lines. You can make it do all kinds of things. You can make it turbo. You can make it slow down. Okay? So yes, it's programmable, but the way you program it is the way you put these color codes in. Okay? And actually, to make it easier, Last year, I also purchased some stickers. So I drew mine, but there are several stickers in the stuff that I gave Mrs. Finnerty, and you can just use those stickers. So what you can do is you can draw your black lines, and then you can put stickers over the top of the lines, and that will make your Ozobot do what you want it to do. Okay, makes sense so far? All right, so. There we go. Okay, so now it's reading the line. This will make it do a tornado. This will make it actually spin like a tornado. There we go. Okay, it did not. We'll try it again. This will make it zigzag. Come through and it will actually spin like a top. This will just read the colors. This should make it pause for 3 seconds. Okay, the neat thing here now, if it reads this next one correctly, it's actually going to jump lines. And then this last code is an end code. So we're going to try that again, see if we can get it to go all.
This is a carbon cycle Ozobot map one of my students made, and you can see that the Ozobot travels along until it encounters the different processes in the carbon cycle, and at each process the student was asked to have the Ozobot actually do something when it gets there, stop and do something. So that's where the codes come into play, and students had to fill out what the step was and also try to provide some sort of picture of it. And here is an example of a nitrogen cycle Ozobot map, again with pictures and with stops for the Ozobot. I told my students that the purpose of this activity really was for them to teach the Ozobot about the cycle and act like the Ozobot was their student. So to look at it that way, being as how when you're able to teach something, that's how you really learn it. So that ultimately was what my students were trying to do, was to teach the Ozobot about the cycle that they chose.
And in this next clip, you're just going to see real quickly the level of student engagement and how they're all actively participating and making a map. Then you will see one of the next projects that Mr. Hudson and I did together for Earth Space Science. Also, I just want to point out that these are just 2 of them. Hudson had another one that involved having a map of a college campus, and students had to recreate the college campus map and have their Ozobot follow a specific set of instructions or directions based off of what he wanted them to learn about that college campus. Because again, he was a college and career readiness teacher as well. We have also seen where teachers have made a cylinder of paper, and on the inside of the cylinder are different processes or information, vocabulary words or things that would be listed and memorized, and the Ozobot travels inside, so it makes the paper turn and rotate, and which is kind of cool because you can then have it shift over to another loop and do another loop of things. We have additionally seen people use them for social studies types things, like have a recreation of a map of an actual event that took place, like a Lewis and Clark expedition or a battle, or just go from capital to capital of different states or countries or follow rivers. And so the student is creating a product, but for a reason more than just to create the product to learn the event geography or names of places. They're actually creating it for the Ozobot to learn those, and so they're teaching it to the bot.
Are you moving yours around?
In my high school earth-based science class, I used the Ozobots as one piece of a larger project, which was to make a moon map that not only covered the features of the moon, but also incorporated knowledge of the Apollo missions and let students develop an understanding of the types of things the astronauts did on the Apollo missions. So this is in Canvas where I kept this assignment. And it started with just making a moon map itself, where students had to use longitude and latitude grid lines first, then match those longitude and latitudes up with specific features on the moon, then specific areas for the landing sites, for the 3 landing sites. And the students had to then do some research with NASA, Wikipedia, or any other research that they could do where they learned about the EVA missions for the 3 different Apollo missions. And after they did that, they plotted the EVA missions using the latitude and longitude coordinates, drew them out, and then incorporated their Ozobot to travel the EVA missions that the astronauts actually did themselves. So students got to learn the different features of the missions, what was included, what tools astronauts got to use, what things the astronauts were looking for, the different types of science that they did while I was out there. And then to make it fun, they could put a costume on their Ozobot that represented one of the experiments in one of the EVAs of one of the missions. So they made a little costume out of markers and construction paper. The Ozobot wore it while it covered its route that was plotted out by students. They really had a lot of fun with it, and they learned more than just about the moon, but also what humans did while they were on the moon.
So this is an example of one of the Ozobot moon map projects. And for this project, students had to put latitude and longitude lines for the moon. And once they had latitude and longitude, then I gave them a list of significant features of the moon's surface. So they drew out the mare and craters and specific noteworthy features of the moon onto their moon map using latitude and longitude. After they did that, then they had to research the 3 Apollo missions and pick out details of the EVAs that the astronauts did during those missions. And once they've done that, then they use their Ozobot to walk the EVA route that the astronauts did. And the Ozobot had to do some things along the EVA that the students got to choose. Here is a second moon map. Same thing. There's their EVAs for the missions. Here's what their Ozobots did. And there was also a bonus section where the Ozobot could wear a costume that went along with one of the EVAs, whatever one they picked. And there was lots to pick from for whatever experiment they wanted to pick. And this group picked the heat flow experiment that was done on one of the EVAs of one of the missions. So their Ozobot actually wore this little costume to indicate the heat experiment that they had chosen.
Good afternoon. I am Doug Hudson, Alternative Education and Credit Recovery Teacher at Greencastle High School. I also taught a college readiness class up until this year, but due to the pandemic, we had to cut that class from the schedule as my duties increased substantially. Hopefully, Mrs. Finnerty and I were successful in showing you a few things about the Ozobot and how it can be used in almost any classroom setting. I have seen lessons from kindergarten all the way through high school, and the excitement in students' eyes when they successfully program their bot is a joy to behold. I have also seen the robot shown to adult learners successfully transforming mature adults into curious children again.
On the screen now, you see a couple of things. What is in an Ozobot classroom set and possible funding. These little gems are not cheap. A 12-bot classroom set will run about $1,500 and an 18-bot set approximately $2,000. I know most schools, especially in today's economic climate, don't have that kind of discretionary money in their budget. So the question arises, how do I fund the purchase? The answer is a grant. If you do not know, a grant is non-repayable money given by an organization for a specific purpose. Most grants require some form of grant writing, reporting, and compliance. Grant writing takes some time, so if this is the route you are going to go, allow yourself plenty of time to meet a deadline. I have been successful in acquiring several grants during my teaching career for things such as computers, classroom supplies, and items such as the Ozobots to extend beyond the classroom. Here are a few funding sources. Check your community foundation. Many counties in the state of Indiana have a community foundation, and I would say probably 85 to 95% of those have some type of grant program. Donors Choose. Donors Choose is an internet-based fundraising where you can go in, you set up an account, and hopefully people will want to give you money. Walmart. Walmart is another great source of money. If you either have a distribution center or a Walmart store in your vicinity, you can go to their website and there are community grants that they can provide money for you as well. Target. Target is one I have not personally used, but I believe they have a grant writing process as well. Toshiba. Toshiba is mainly one for technology. I was successful in getting a Toshiba grant years ago and acquired some GPS units for another teacher in our building. McDonald's, the MAC grant. My wife has been successful in acquiring several MAC grants. Most of the time, these are up to $400 or $500, but it's also another great way to provide money for your classroom. And finally, check your Retired Teachers Association. They many times have money they want to give as well. I will tell you, this list is far from exclusive, but contains sources that I have either used or have heard about. The best thing to do is ask colleagues and search the internet for funding sources in your region. Again, thank you for watching our presentation, and if you have any questions, please contact us at the email addresses listed.
And I just want to leave you with some final ideas that I got right off of the Ozobot Twitter feed, and they are just at Ozobot, which is where a lot of teachers post their projects and ideas, and also where Ozobot provides information on upcoming training. So this is one from a teacher that shows Ozobots traveling a circulatory system for anatomy and physiology. Here is a training for math and English language workshops coming up and how to incorporate them in those classes. Here's a young group of students who are working on candidates and the election with the Ozobot crisscrossing the United States, which cities or states to go to and why. And here's another shot of that. And then here's a cute one for animals lesson where the Ozobot's wearing a costume for a duck with ducklings following after, and the kids are working on a project to investigate mammals. And lastly, I'll just put up Doug and I's information. We're both at Greencastle High School. D. Hudson at greencastle.k12.in.us or J. Finnerty at greencastle.k12.in.us. Will get a hold of us. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation and have a great conference.
Okay, I think that's it for us, unless anybody has any questions for us. Also, for those projects that I mentioned and showed, we have an attached document that lays out that like the requirements and the actual instructions given to the students, which come in 3 levels. And I indicated the 3 levels in the document as like easy, medium, or hard, with that big moon map project for Earth Space Science being the hard one. It took my students 5 days straight to make those huge moon maps with all the details and the Ozobot routes and do all the research. But other projects only take a day or 2. So you can do all kinds of different stuff with it. But In the chat, Doug, do you see anything in the chat we needed to address?
I have a question. How long, how long do you spend training the kids how to use the Ozobot versus doing the activity?
You want me to take that one, Jen?
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, you can do it in 5 minutes. The Ozobots are very easy to learn. That's one reason that I go along. But I do have some videos that I will show them. But mainly, you just turn it on. You show them where the lights are at the bottom. You show them how to draw the line and put the color codes on it, and they're ready to go. And most of them, and again, I've used it in a college and careers class. Mrs. Finnerty has used it in science class. My wife has used it in middle school classes. Some of our middle school teachers at Greencastle Middle School last year were going to use it as well, but we all know what happened the second semester. But I think the activity, Mrs. Finnerty, I'll let you take that, but I would say you can probably teach most students to use this Ozobot in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah, and I think that applies even to the younger students. The only thing that my high schoolers got in addition was going to the website for all the like advanced codes that weren't already in the packet that's given. So the Ozobots themselves come with like a little cheat sheet that shows the codes and what it'll do. And then you hand them the markers and they can figure it out real quick. And then they also do like a little bit of trial and error where, you know, they might draw a line that doesn't quite work and then they have to start over. But I let them go ahead and learn that way too. So, because we've got plenty of paper and they can start over after they do a couple trial lines, but it doesn't take long at all to get them started on it. And once they've learned it, then they've got it and can do the Ozobot again later if you want to do a second lesson. There any other questions for us? I wanted to check the chat real quick too. I don't see anything in the chat that we have to address. There's just good stuff written there. And again, it's a thing that can be shared throughout your whole corporation, let alone your building with all the different subjects. So you can collaborate with teachers of other departments if you'd like. Otherwise, I think we're done for the day.
I want to thank Doug and Jennifer for their sharing of their expertise and for their presentation. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody who's on the session and thank you for sharing your great ideas. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Don. Bye-bye.